traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Scott Tucker Solutions and his show Retirement Decoded. Sunday mornings at 8. Learn more at scotttuckersolutions.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So, Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator in that sex trafficking operation, who's serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking conviction, granted limited immunity to talk to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, answer questions without fear her responses could later be used against her, according to sources. Her attorney, David Marcus, told ABC News, no asks and no promises. There have been none. We haven't asked for anything. We haven't been promised anything, except limited immunity. This is not a situation we are asking for anything in return for testimony or anything like that. Of course, everybody knows Maxwell would welcome any relief, because, of course, the reporting had been that Maxwell, through her attorney, was seeking a pardon or a sentence commutation in response for her ostensibly truthful testimony about what she knows about the Epstein-Maxwell operation and who else perhaps should be implicated other than the two of them. So that was a closed-door meeting and conversation. According to reports, Maxwell provided the Department of Justice with a list of approximately 100 names of individuals who are linked to Epstein and his alleged sex trafficking operation. But, you know, what that means linked to is unclear. And, of course, this is all sort of the hush-hush reporting. And so, you know, things continue to spin around this, in part, in my view, because of the way the Trump administration handled this. I think Pam Bondi et al. Could have handled this better from a communications perspective. And in part because we're not to the bottom of it. We don't feel like we've gotten credible answers to legitimate questions. Trump was asked about it, the Maxwell conversation with Deputy Attorney General Blanche. He said this.
Well, I don't want to talk about that. What I do want to say is that Todd is a great attorney, but you ought to be speaking about Larry Summers. You ought to be speaking about some of his friends that are hedge fund guys. They're all over the place. You ought to be speaking about Bill Clinton, who went to the island 28 times. I never went to the island.
You maintain you did not write a letter for Jeffrey Epstein's birthday?
I don't even know what they're talking about. Now, somebody could have written a letter and used my name, but that's happened a lot. All you have to do is take a look at the dossier, the fake dossier. Everything's fake with that administration. Everything's fake with the Democrats. Take a look at what they just found about the dossier. Everything is fake. They're a bunch of sick people. Where did you see the people laying outside?
Well, Trump is not afraid to name names if everybody else is. Wesley Hunt, he's a Republican from Texas, member of Congress, former U.S. Army Apache helicopter pilot. He was on Peter Schweitzer's podcast, and he suggested, well, he told Schweitzer the following, quote, I think we're going to get to the bottom of some of the weird stuff that went on, but a lot of this weird cabal, it's the left. It's actually Hollywood CEOs that they have been hiding this for. Well, okay. I mean, that's the sort of thing we've been hearing for a while. But who would be the they hiding anything at this juncture? Because the they that were in charge, who would be potentially tight with Hollywood CEOs, I don't know, are no longer in charge. This is why it's all leaves such a sort of unsatisfying feeling in your gut, although I'm glad to see that this is being pursued and Maxwell has been discussed, and we'll see where this goes. And Trump is saying, I don't want to talk about it, but he's also providing some direction. Cleta Mitchell is an election attorney of renown inside the Beltway and founder of the Election Integrity Network. She joins us now. Cleta, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
So, you have a keen legal mind. What is your handle on where we are now with the Epstein matter?
Well, I have to tell you, I'm not following it as closely as I should because I'm up to my armpits with trying to do something else that I think your listeners are interested in, which is to get the accountability about the 2020 election.
Right.
And I think it's all part of the same structure, which is we want transparency. We need people. We need a person who's charged to get to the bottom of these matters. That's one of the reasons we voted for President Trump, and I'm a bit mystified about why those things don't seem to be moving quickly. I mean, there are close to 3 dozen people who were indicted, who are still under indictment because they served as electors for President Trump in 2020, or they were lawyers for President Trump, or they were somehow involved. Tina Peters is in jail in Colorado for trying to expose things. And so it's part of a pattern here, and we need to it's the one sort of spot in the administration that I think people are saying, what's going on here?
Well, do you see a parallel? The infamous Trump Raffensperger call in Georgia, for example, where the allegation by Fani Willis and the entire Democratic Party was he was telling Raffensperger to go find the votes that he needed to win Georgia, which, of course, is, if you actually read the transcript, listen to what he said, that's not at all what he was saying. And you were on that call.
I was on the call.
Yeah.
And in fact, the president has a way of speaking that the media, the left-wing media, and the leftist elites, they don't understand. But we know what he's saying. And the fact of the matter is, the media says he was trying to find 12,000 votes or whatever. We'd already found them. I was one of his volunteer attorneys. We filed an election contest on December the 4th, and we listed them by name. Every illegal vote, because it was cast by a voter who was at an address, a registration address that the United States Postal Service said was vacant, or passed from a post office box registration address. Those are all illegal under Georgia law. So when they said to find them, we already found them. They were in the public record. But of course, it doesn't matter. The facts don't matter to these people.
Well,
facts don't matter.
That's where I was going. I mean, do you see a similarity between the mischaracterization of Trump with respect to that call to sort of direct attention away from the underlying substance of the issue, which is, these tranches of votes were cast illegally and they need to be reviewed and action taken according to the law. And what you're seeing to some extent with Epstein now with the Wall Street Journal letter that Trump has filed a defamation suit against Wall Street Journal over, and sort of the insinuations going on here that Trump is the one who's somehow implicated in the Epstein files, even though most of what we have heard in the public domain, including from victims, Trump is not implicated at all. It's quite the opposite. Never visited the island, as you just heard him said, and others have. But this is the same way. They've got a problem here. And so they need to figure out a way to bring Trump in it to make him the center of attention, as opposed to having the public focus on the underlying substance of the matter.
Well, that's absolutely right. And I've seen interviews with attorneys for the victims. I watched a video just over the weekend where this lawyer said they sent out letters to dozens and dozens of people in 2009, by the way, and saying, we're going to subpoena you for deposition in our lawsuit against Jeffrey Epstein. And Trump picked up the phone and called and said, come on over. I'll tell you anything you want to know. He said, you have to subpoena me. And they spent hours with him, and he gave them a lot of useful information, and that helped them substantially in their litigation against Epstein. Well, you don't see that on the front page of the New York Times. You don't see that even referenced. And the other thing that is shocking to me is that there's been virtually no coverage whatsoever by the left-wing propaganda media of the documents that have been declassified by Tulsi Gabbard regarding, the origins of the Russia collusion hoax. So, I mean, all of this. But would you like to know what really concerns me about all of this?
Please.
Is if any one of your listeners were to go, as I did on Saturday morning, I went to Grok. AI Grok, it's Elon Musk artificial intelligence platform, and I just posed this question: what are the true facts regarding the origins of the 2016 Russia collusion allegations regarding President Trump? Would you like to know what it regurgitated to me?
Sure.
It regurgitated every left-wing false narrative that for which the New York Times won a Pulitzer and all. And then I went back to Grok and said, because you can have these arguments or discussions with, it's very weird. It's a weird sensation. Mm-hmm. I then went back and said, you have failed, Grok, you have failed to include the declassified documents from Tulsi Gabbard over the last week. What about those? And then it comes back and it has all of the contradictions. I said, now, Grok, go back and compare your first response to your second response and describe how you got it wrong the first time. It's pretty scary. I actually put that on Twitter, on my X account on Saturday. But what I'm saying is all of these left-wing propaganda media reports and these false narratives that have grown up around President Trump, against President Trump, everything related to him, whether it's the 2016 Russia hoax, and everything that followed thereafter, whether it's the 2020 election, whether it's the phone call with Brad Raffensperger. If you go to artificial intelligence today, it will spit out to you the left's narrative. And that, to me, is really very frightening.
Well, although I got to say, on the upside, at least Grok can learn, as these language learning models can learn from their mistakes when challenged, unlike, say, your actual human leftist. So, that's positive. I hadn't
thought about it that way.
Yeah. You posted something else on X last week that I read on the program, but I'd like a first-person accounting of it because I think it'd be better. Just about reminding people, since you brought up the Russiagate hoax and the reckoning that we're seeking at present. That this was the modus operandi of the Obama administration. Don't forget about how the IRS operated under that same president.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's as though Obama views himself as the king, and you can tell that by his pronouncements and when he was just directing all the black people, you can't possibly vote for Trump. But and remember that after 2000, when he took office in 2009, and remember that his very first major effort was Obamacare, and also the tax increases and all of the things that he was setting out to do, and it spawned the rise of the Tea Party movement. You remember Rick Santelli on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and calling for it. We need a new Tea Party revolt. Well, and indeed it happened, and of course they couldn't stand that because it scared them about the midterms, and it scared him about re-election. And so he publicly started attacking the Tea Party movement and these grassroots groups and all. And Kim Strassel, in her book about this whole episode, likened it to when Henry VIII mused publicly, "Who will rid me of this meddlesome priest?" Right. Related to his desire to divorce Anne Boleyn and
Sir Thomas More, right? Yeah.
Yes, Sir Thomas More. So, voila! All of a sudden, now the IRS starts. I represented a lot of organizations. That's one of the things I did when I was in private practice before I spent full time working on election integrity. But I represented groups that filed for exempt status with the Internal Revenue Service, and I started noticing in 2010 from an application that I filed on behalf of a client in November of 2009. And this group said as its purpose was to hold government officials accountable. That was their goal. That was their stated mission and purpose. That application should have been, I should have had that back for them within 30 days, 45 days. Well, we go 6 months, then a year, and longer. That was not granted until after the whole thing was exposed, and they finally got their exempt status in July of 2013. But now here's the other thing: is that then I began to notice it wasn't just them; it was every application. Because I represent conservatives, I represented some of those Tea Party groups, and so we started writing letters, and I was dealing with the D.C. office of the IRS. And remember, one of the things that they said subsequently was, well, it was all these people in Cincinnati that didn't know what they're doing. Oh, no. Mm-hmm. I had in writing from the person in Cincinnati that they couldn't do anything. Their hands were tied because of the D.C. office was directing all of this. But that's what Obama did. I mean, he basically directed. You had all these left-wing Democrats in Congress, including Dick Durbin and others, who were demanding that the IRS do something to stop these groups from functioning. And that's exactly what they did. And so only because I will tell you the origins of the investigation were that Jim Jordan had his staff call Lois Lerner and ask her to come over and meet with them. I would say this is probably in 2012. So now this has been going on 3 years. And they asked her, what's going on. And she was so arrogant and so dismissive that she refused to, she's always been very arrogant, dismissive. And so when she left, they got nothing, and they said, well, we can't go back and tell our boss, well, she just basically disregarded your request for information. So they came up with the idea of asking the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, or TIGTA, to do an investigation. And lo and behold, they discovered that the Obama-led IRS had, in fact, put a BOLO alert out. Be on the lookout for any organization that had Patriots in its name, that had Tea Party in its name,
pro-life,
that had a pro-life in it, and if they had statements of purpose being holding public officials accountable, et cetera, et cetera. And then then when all of that came out and the groups filed suit against the IRS, of course, then the Obama DOJ just slow-walked that. And I went to Jeff Sessions early in his tenure as the new Attorney General, and I said, would you please tell your civil division that are fighting these Tea Party groups. By now we're now into 2017. So many of these groups just folded up and went away because they couldn't get, donors were afraid. And that was the other thing, that the IRS began to audit donors to Mitt Romney.
Right.
And,
which is why Durbin was pushing for the disclosure of donors from C4s and stuff. Right. It was all weaponization and then no accountability. Lois Lerner never, Koskinen never held to account, the IRS commissioner at the time. Nobody's held to account. And now we've had a decade more of this that folded in all of these other agencies, law enforcement and intel.
And remember that Lois Lerner's hard drive famously was somehow destroyed.
Yes.
And then when we tried to get the IRS, the court to order the IRS to go to its storage unit in West Virginia, we just deleted all of that 30 days ago. We don't have any of those records anymore. They were all deleted 30 days ago. But my point is this: these people on the left. I gave a speech about this to a group probably in 2014 after this all came out, and I'd been fighting with them, and I said, just think about this. All these people went to colleges and universities where it is common. It is accepted practice to belittle and degrade and to try to silence any conservative voices. So then they get into office. And
they do the same thing.
In our government, and they do the same thing.
Cleta,
Obama gets away with it, IRS targeting. And is it any surprise he did it to Trump with the National Intelligence Service?
Cleta Mitchell, election attorney, founder of the Election Integrity Network. Cleta, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And it's now 7 o'clock, AM 560 WIND Chicago.
President Trump is meeting with Britain's Prime Minister. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. It's happening now in Scotland, and there's a familiar issue the president is bringing up: illegal